They said I was nothing, a forgotten branch on a dying tree. But when the most powerful family in the empire needed someone to marry their dying heir, I stepped forward. Not out of love, not out of duty, but because I knew something they didn't. In a world that crushes the weak, sometimes the only way to survive is to become what they fear most. My name is Visha, and this is how I turned a death sentence into an empire. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy listening. The Westbrook family had ruled the northern provinces for 5 generations. Their wealth could feed armies. Their influence reached into the imperial palace itself. Their name opened every door in the empire. My surname was also Westbrook, but that meant nothing. We were a forgotten branch, so distant from the main family tree that even their stable hands lived better than we did. 10 of us crammed into a crumbling courtyard with walls so thin you could hear the neighbors arguing. My parents, grandmother, 4 brothers, 2 sisters, and me. Grandmother's cough rattled through the night. My younger brothers fought over scraps at dinner. My father, a failed scholar with failed dreams, drank away his shame in cheap wine. That's why I became a shadow in my cousin Alara's life. I was 16 when I truly understood how to survive in this world, old enough to be useful, young enough to seem harmless. Alara Westbrook, daughter of the main branch, born under lucky stars, beautiful as a painting and twice as delicate. She lived in a mansion with 37 rooms and complained that it felt cramped. She had 12 silk dresses and claimed she had nothing to wear. She threw tantrums when the pearls in her jewelry weren't perfectly matched. I was her devoted little dog, always wagging my tail, always grateful for scraps. In front of her friends from other noble families, I played my part perfectly, the pitiful poor relation. It stirred their sympathy, made them generous. They gave me dresses they'd worn once and decided they hated, jewelry with missing stones or outdated designs, hair ornaments that had fallen out of fashion. I accepted everything with tears of gratitude, praised their kindness to the heavens, and whenever I got the chance, I told everyone how generous and noble they were. They loved it. They loved hearing me worship them. And in return they kept the gifts coming. Those old dresses, when carefully mended and resold at market. They bought grandmother's medicine and rice for 10 mouths. That broken jewelry, taken apart and reassembled with clever hands? It let me attend events without looking like the beggar I was. As I mended more dresses, I started sketching. Adding details here, changing a neckline there. My designs caught attention. Soon young ladies from various families asked me to design new gowns for them. Their maids sewed according to my drawings, and I was paid in more cast-offs and connections. I knew my place. I never crossed lines that would invite gossip. Never competed. Never shined too bright. Never gave them reason to push me away. That's how I stayed by Alara's side and studied music, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, and etiquette with her private tutors. I mastered them all but only let my design talent show. And even that, never enough to make Alara jealous. My cousin was spoiled but not cruel by nature. Thanks to my clothing designs, she became friends with high-born ladies who had previously ignored her. Her social standing soared. Her marriage prospects became the talk of the capital. Then came the announcement that made the entire empire gasp. Alara was engaged to Noah-chan, heir to the Duke of Northwind's estate, nephew to the emperor himself, and first cousin to the crown prince. Noah-chan was legendary. Handsome enough to make women weep, brilliant enough to pass the imperial examinations at 17, skilled with both brush and blade. They said he could compose poetry that moved ministers to tears and lead cavalry charges that scattered enemies like autumn leaves. He was everything powerful men aspired to be and everything women dreamed of marrying. Alara preened like a peacock for weeks after the engagement. She made sure everyone knew her future husband was practically a prince. She planned their wedding with the fervor of a general planning battle. One afternoon, lounging on cushions while I fanned her, she said, "Visha, after I marry Noah, I'll find you a good match too. Perhaps his half-brother Lawrence. He's a bastard son, but still a nephew of the emperor. Still a cousin to the crown prince. You'd be set for life, and you could continue serving me." Even a bastard son of the Duke's house was so far above my reach that I couldn't imagine refusing. Through Alara, my utterly useless father had secured a minor position in the capital's revenue office. My older brothers found work as clerks. My 2 younger brothers were admitted into the clan's academy, no longer bullied for being poor relations, finally treated with basic dignity. Every night I prayed for Alara's wedding day to come soon. When she rose, I would rise with her. But heaven must have been blind. When Noah accompanied the crown prince on an official inspection tour to the western provinces, bandits ambushed their party. The intelligence had been wrong. Instead of a small raiding group, they faced 200 mounted warriors with inside knowledge of the crown prince's route. It was an assassination attempt. Noah-chan threw himself in front of the crown prince, taking 3 arrows meant for the heir to the throne. He killed 17 men before collapsing from blood loss and a sword wound that nearly severed his arm. They brought him back to the capital more dead than alive. The duke's mansion summoned every imperial physician. Each one examined Noah, consulted their medical texts, prescribed treatments, and then left shaking their heads gravely. First, Alara was anxious. She sent servants daily to inquire about Noah's condition. She lit incense at temples. She donated silver for prayers. But as weeks passed and Noah remained unconscious, that anxiety curdled into fear. Her spies brought back whispers from the duke's household. Noah was dying. The physicians said he might never wake. And there was talk, quiet, careful talk, about the tradition of ghost marriage. If Noah died before the wedding, the duke's family might demand that Alara marry his corpse anyway, to honor the engagement and provide his spirit with a companion in the afterlife. And in the cruelest versions of that tradition, if the bride was young and healthy, she might be encouraged to follow her husband to the grave. Encouraged strongly, with poison or a silk noose. Alara collapsed when she heard, fell ill with terror, took to her bed and wouldn't eat. Her mother, my Aunt Helena, born into the prestigious Wang family of Langya, came to visit. I served tea quietly in the corner, trying to be invisible. Aunt Helena smoothed Alara's hair like she was still a child. Hush now, my darling. Hush, you won't have to marry him. Mother will find another way. Just get better, and everything will be fine. I stood in the shadows watching this display of maternal love. Watching Aunt Helena promise the impossible to comfort her daughter. Watching Alara cry in the arms of someone who would protect her at any cost. A small, cold part of me felt envious. After Aunt Helena left, Alara sat up, wiped her tears and looked almost relieved. Mother still loves me best, she said with a trembling smile. All I have to do is cry a bit and she can't bear to see me suffer. Then she sighed and lay back on her pillows. Poor Noah. He was so perfect. Had been so perfect, she meant. Past tense. Already writing him off as dead. If I were in her position, I thought I wouldn't give up so easily. I would have gone to visit him myself to see whether he was truly dying or merely unconscious. I would have volunteered to marry him early to bring him good fortune. That way I'd have both love and loyalty on my side. If Noah lived, I'd be the devoted wife who saved him through faith and dedication. If he died and the crown prince eventually became emperor, my position would still be secure through that sacrifice. Remarriage would be complicated, but far from impossible. I'd be the tragic young widow who tried to save the empire's hero. But of course I couldn't say any of that aloud. If I dared suggest Alara was being cowardly, she'd tear me apart. The poor relation doesn't criticize the wealthy cousin. That's survival rule number 1. Aunt Helena returned a week later. This time she wasn't alone. Beside her walked a thin, severe woman in dark robes with silver threads, Madame Ruth, the head stewardess who managed the entire Duke of Northwind's household. When Aunt Helena gathered all the unmarried girls of the Westbrook family into the main hall, and Madame Ruth sat beside her wearing an expression like ice over deep water, I understood immediately. Aunt Helena was selling one of us to the Duke's mansion, and Madame Ruth was here to pick which one. Aunt Helena had been born into the prestigious Wang family of Langya. Her bloodline was nearly as illustrious as the imperial families. The Duke's household wouldn't dare antagonize her openly. Not now, when they needed the Wang family's continued political support for the crown prince. If Aunt Helena promised that whichever Westbrook girl married Noah, both the Westbrook and Wang families would continue backing the crown prince's faction, then for political stability's sake, the Duke's household would swallow this bitter pill and accept the substitute bride. Report your birth dates in 8 characters of destiny, Aunt Helena commanded. The 8 characters, the hour, day, month, and year of birth. used by fortune tellers to predict compatibility and fate, used by families to determine whether a marriage would bring prosperity or disaster. One by one, my cousins recited theirs. Their voices trembled. They knew any of them might be chosen to marry a dying man, possibly to be buried with him. None dared lie about their birth information. Aunt Helena had likely already sent servants to verify everyone's details from family records. Anyone caught lying would face punishment worse than the arranged marriage. I noticed that Madame Ruth sat perfectly still as the first dozen girls reported their information. Her face revealed nothing. She didn't even seem to be listening. But when my turn came and I recited my birth date and time, she lifted her teacup and took a small sip. Her eyes flicked to me, just for a moment, studying me with the intensity of a merchant appraising jade. Then she looked away and set her cup down. When all 23 of us had finished, Aunt Helena stood. Her silk robes whispered against the floor. "One of you will be chosen to marry into the Duke's household," she announced. "To bring good fortune to young Lord Noah through your auspicious fate. This is a great honor for our family." A great honor. That's what she called it. Selling one of us like a pig at market, calling it honor. Several of my cousins began crying quietly. "Is anyone willing?" Aunt Helena asked. "To marry into the Duke's household and bring blessings to the young lord?" The crying got louder. Someone sobbed. Someone else's teeth were chattering from fear. I felt Madame Ruth's eyes settle on me. She lifted her teacup again but didn't drink. Just tapped the porcelain lid with her fingers. Tap, tap, tap. Was she signaling me? Or was the gesture meaningless? I hesitated for exactly 3 heartbeats, calculating the odds. If I volunteered, I could negotiate better terms. If I stayed silent and was chosen anyway, I'd have no leverage at all. The risk was enormous. Noah might die tomorrow. The Duke's family might decide a living sacrifice was required. I could end up poisoned or hanged within weeks of the wedding. But if I didn't take this chance, my family would continue starving. My brothers would lose their academy positions. My father would lose his job. We'd fall back into poverty so deep that my sisters would have to be sold to settle debts. And beyond that, beyond survival, there was opportunity. If Noah lived, I'd be married to the future Duke of Northwind, nephew to the Emperor himself, cousin to the Crown Prince. Even if Noah died, I'd be a young widow from the Duke's household with powerful connections. Either way, I'd never be a beggar again. I stepped forward. "I'm willing," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I'm willing to marry into the Duke's household and bring good fortune to young Lord Noah." Clink. The sound of Madame Ruth setting down her teacup echoed in the sudden silence. The crying stopped. The maids held their breath. Everyone stared at me like I'd volunteered to jump into a volcano. Aunt Helena's expression flickered, surprise, then calculation, then something almost like satisfaction. Madame Ruth stood slowly. When she spoke, her voice was thin but sharp, like a blade disguised in silk. "Such a kind and loyal girl. On behalf of my young master, I thank you for your selfless devotion." Her words praised me. By contrast, they condemned Alara's refusal. Madame Ruth turned to Aunt Helena. "Madame Westbrook will take this one. Here are the marriage contract and betrothal token for the original engagement. Please destroy the contract and return our family's token." As she spoke, Madame Ruth carefully tore Noah and Alara's marriage contract into tiny pieces, letting them fall like snow. Aunt Helena gestured to her maid, who bowed and left to fetch something, presumably the jade pendant that had served as Noah's betrothal gift to Alara. Aunt Helena dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, though I saw no actual tears. "Good girl, Visha," she said smoothly. "Tell Aunt what you want in return." Could I ask for everything? I thought greedily. But I wasn't stupid. "I'd like a more generous dowry than my station would normally warrant," I said carefully. "I'm still a Westbrook, even if from a minor branch. I'd like to be married from the main family residence with proper ceremony, not from my father's crumbling courtyard. And I'd like my family taken care of, positions secured for my brothers, medicine for my grandmother, a proper house for my parents." I watched Aunt Helena's face. Would she find me too greedy? Would she rescind the offer? But she nodded, almost approvingly. "Reasonable requests. It shall be done." She paused, studying me. "The Duke's household has also agreed to additional terms. If you successfully bring good fortune to young Lord Noah, if he recovers, you'll be properly acknowledged as his wife. The ceremony has already been arranged for 3 days from now. A carriage will come for you tomorrow morning. 3 days. Not 3 months. Not even 3 weeks. They wanted me married to Noah immediately before he died. The fortune tellers must have said his fate was hanging by a thread and needed an auspicious marriage to anchor it. Or they simply wanted someone legally bound to him before he breathed his last, so the funeral arrangements would be simpler. I bowed deeply. Thank you, Aunt. I won't disappoint our family. As I walked back to my place, my cousins stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Some looked pitying. Others looked relieved that they'd escaped. Ilara, sitting on her cushioned chair, looked pale and wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I returned to my family's tiny courtyard. My mother cried when I told her. My grandmother held my hand and called me a good filial girl. My brothers thanked me with voices thick with guilt. My father, drunk as usual, laughed bitterly. Finally useful for something, are you? At least you're smarter than your idiot brothers. I didn't cry. I'd made my choice with clear eyes. In 3 days, I would either be the wife of a dying duke's heir, or I'd be the woman who saved him and secured my family's future for generations. The wedding ceremony was strange and sad. A ghost wedding performed while the groom lay unconscious. The duke's mansion was enormous, with courtyards within courtyards, gardens that stretched beyond sight, and servants who outnumbered the population of small villages. The heir's residence was a compound unto itself, large enough to house 50 people comfortably. I was dressed in red and gold, the phoenix crown heavy on my head, but there was no joy. Noah lay in his bed, his face pale as paper, breathing so shallow you had to watch closely to see his chest rise. He was beautiful even near death. Strong features, long dark hair spread across the pillow, the body of a warrior visible even beneath the blankets. But his eyes were closed, and the physician said he might never open them again. I performed the vows alone, to heaven and earth, to his parents, to him lying there like a corpse already. The Duchess, Noah's mother, Lady Vivian Chan, watched the ceremony with red-rimmed eyes. She looked at me not with gratitude but with the desperate hope of a drowning woman clutching at driftwood. After the ceremony, I was shown to Noah's quarters. The steward explained quietly that I should sleep in the adjacent room but spend time each day sitting with Noah, reading to him, playing music, anything that might call his spirit back. That first night, I sat beside his bed and looked at my husband. So this was Noah Chun, the legendary warrior, the crown prince's most trusted guard. Ilara's lost dream. I don't know if you can hear me, I said quietly, but I'm Visha, your wife now. I'm from a minor branch of the Westbrook family. Nobody special. Nobody you would have chosen. I took his hand carefully. It was cold. But I didn't volunteer to marry you out of pure selflessness. I did it to save my family from starvation. I did it for opportunity. So I'm going to be honest with you. If you die, I'll mourn you properly and live well as your widow. But I'd much rather you lived. I squeezed his hand gently. Because if you live, I won't just be a poor relation anymore. I'll be the wife who saved you. And together we could do great things. No response. Just that shallow breathing. But I came back the next day. And the next. And every day after. I read to him from the classics. I played music on the guzheng that the servants brought. I talked to him about everything and nothing, court gossip, whether the funny things I saw in the gardens. I learned the rhythms of his household. Which servants were loyal. Which were just going through motions. Which physicians truly cared about saving him, and which were only protecting their own reputations by predicting his death. The Duchess came often to visit. At first she regarded me with polite distance, but as weeks passed and I never wavered in attending Noah, never complained, never cried for my fate, something in her expression softened. You're a good girl, Visha, she said one day. Better than we deserved. Whatever happens, I'll make sure you're taken care of. I bowed deeply. Thank you, Mother. But I'm doing this for him, not for reward. That was partly true. I did want Noah to live, not just for my sake, but because in the short time I'd spent reading to his unconscious body, I'd grown to feel protective of him. Like he was a responsibility I'd taken on and refused to abandon. 2 months after the wedding, I was reading poetry when his finger twitched. I froze, stared at his hand. Had I imagined it? Then his eyelid fluttered. Get the physician! I screamed. Someone get the physician! Servants came running. Within minutes the imperial physician arrived, then the Duchess, then the Duke himself, the steward, half the household. Noah's eyes opened. Confused. Disoriented. Struggling to focus. The physician examined him quickly, checking his pulse, his eyes asking him questions. What happened? Noah's voice was barely a whisper, rough from disuse. You were injured protecting the crown prince, my lord, the physician said gently. You've been unconscious for nearly 3 months. Noah's eyes moved slowly around the room, taking in the crowd of people. Then his gaze landed on me, kneeling beside his bed. Who? Your wife, my lord, I said softly. My name is Visha. Confusion flickered across his face. Wife? But Ilara? The Duchess stepped forward quickly. Rest now, my son. We'll explain everything when you're stronger. Over the following weeks, as Noah slowly regained his strength, the full story came out. How Ilara had refused to marry him when he was dying. How I had volunteered in her place. How I'd spent 3 months sitting by his bedside, reading and playing music, never wavering. Noah's reaction to learning about Ilara's betrayal was complicated. I watched anger flash across his face, then something colder settle in. Disappointment, perhaps. Or simply understanding that the woman he'd been engaged to was never real, just a fantasy he'd created. His reaction to me was equally complicated. I don't know whether to thank you or apologize, he said one afternoon when we were alone. We were in the garden. He could walk now with a cane, though his right arm still hadn't regained full strength. The physician said it might never be what it was. The sword wound had cut too deep. You can do both, I said lightly. Thank me for volunteering, apologize that I had to. He laughed, the first time I'd heard him laugh. You're honest. I appreciate that. Would you prefer I pretend this was a love match? I asked. That I've secretly adored you from afar? That would be a comfortable lie. No, he said quietly. I've had enough of comfortable lies. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, the physicians tell me you sat with me every single day. That you talked to me, read to me, played music. That even when they said I would die, you didn't leave. I made a commitment, I said simply. And I was curious. To see if you'd prove everyone wrong. I smiled. You did. So now you owe me. He looked at me, this strange wife he'd never chosen, and something shifted in his expression. I suppose I do, he said. What would you like as payment? Teach me, I said. Everything you know about strategy, about politics, about running this estate. I'm your wife now. I should know how to be useful to you beyond sitting at bedsides. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, he said. But in return, you have to promise me something. What? Be honest with me. Always. I can handle cold truth better than warm lies. I met his eyes and saw something I recognized. Someone else who'd learned to survive by seeing clearly. Deal, I said. And that was how our real marriage began. Recovery was slow. Noah couldn't return to military duties immediately. His right arm needed months of careful rehabilitation. But his mind was as sharp as ever, and once he was strong enough to sit for extended periods, he began teaching me. Politics first. The complex web of alliances, rivalries, and dependencies that held the empire together. Who supported the crown prince? Who secretly backed his younger brother? Which ministers could be trusted and which played both sides? The crown prince's position isn't as secure as people think, Noah explained one evening, pointing to a map of the empire spread across his desk. His younger brother has the Empress Dowager's favor and controls the southern garrisons. If the emperor dies before publicly reaffirming his chosen heir, there will be civil war. That's why you're important, I said, following his logic. You're the crown prince's most visible supporter. Your recovery isn't just personal. It's political. Exactly. He smiled. You learn quickly. I've had practice, I said. When you grow up poor, you either learn to read situations fast or you starve. He looked at me with newfound respect. Tell me about growing up in the minor branch. So I did. I told him about mending dresses to buy medicine, about flattering my cousin to secure scraps, about designing clothes for noble ladies who paid me in their discards, about learning to be invisible when it suited me, invisible when it benefited my family. You're a strategist, he said when I finished. You've been fighting your own war all along, just on a different battlefield. I suppose so, I admitted. But I prefer your kind of war. The rules are clearer. He laughed at that. Are they? I'm not sure about that. Estate management came next. The Duke's household was vast lands across 3 provinces, businesses in every major city, thousands of workers and tenants. The steward handled daily operations, but Noah was supposed to oversee everything, and as his wife, I needed to understand the full scope. The estate runs on 3 things, Noah explained. Land, which provides stable income through farming. Trade, which generates wealth but carries risk. And connections, which open doors and create opportunities. And we have all 3, I noted. For now. But fortunes can change. That's why Mother manages the household so carefully. Every expense recorded, every asset carefully considered. If war comes, we'll need those reserves. I absorbed everything he taught me like a dry sponge drinking water. Military strategy, financial planning, court etiquette for the highest levels of nobility. He was patient when I asked questions and frank when I made mistakes. And somewhere in those months of teaching and learning, our relationship shifted from strangers bound by necessity to partners with genuine respect. He told me about his time as the Crown Prince's guard, about battles he'd fought and men he'd lost. I told him about the humiliations I'd endured and the small victories I'd won. We played chess late into the night, testing strategies. We discussed politics over breakfast, debating which ministers were trustworthy. The Duchess noticed the change. One day she pulled me aside. "You've been good for him," Lady Vivian said. "Better than that spoiled brat ever would have been. Noah needs someone strong, someone who won't break under pressure. I think you might be that person." "I hope so, Mother," I said. "I'm trying." "Keep trying." She smiled. "And call me Mother properly now. You've earned it." 6 months after Noah woke up, he could hold a sword again. Not at full strength, but enough to practice. I watched him drill in the courtyard, his movements still slightly stiff but improving daily. "You should learn too," he said, noticing me watching. "Learn what?" "Swordplay. Basic self-defense at least. The world is dangerous, especially for a duchess in waiting. So he taught me that too. How to break holds. Where to strike to disable an attacker. How to move with balance and intention. "You're naturally graceful," he noted after a session. "The dance training helps." I wiped sweat from my face. Everything helps. That's what I've learned. There's no useless knowledge, only knowledge you haven't needed yet. He studied me with that assessing look he got sometimes. "Visha, let me ask you something. If you could have anything at all, what would it be?" I thought carefully. A year ago, I would have said enough to eat or medicine for grandmother. But my family had been taken care of. We had a proper house. My brothers had real futures. My parents would never go hungry again. "Security that can't be taken away," I said finally. "Not just for me, but for everyone I care about. I want to build something so strong that even if empires fall, we'll survive." "Ambitious," he said. "Is that a criticism?" "No." He smiled. "It's a compliment. Ambition means you'll never settle for less than you're worth." 8 months after waking, Noah received a summons to the palace. The crown prince wanted to see him. He dressed in his finest robes, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. This would be the first time facing the man he'd nearly died protecting, the first time in formal court since the assassination attempt. "Will you be all right?" I asked. "I will," he said. "But Visha, while I'm gone, be careful. Now that I've recovered, there will be people who see you as a threat." "A threat? I'm nobody." "No," he said quietly. "You're the woman who saved the crown prince's most important military supporter. You're the woman who replaced Alara Westbrook, which means you embarrassed the Westbrook main family and the Wong family. You're the woman who gained the Duchess's favor. That makes you dangerous to certain people." I felt cold despite the warm day. What should I do? Trust the Duchess. Trust the servants who've been loyal to our household for years. And don't trust anyone else. He touched my cheek gently. Especially don't trust Alara if she comes calling. She'll want something. I understand. He left at dawn. I watched his carriage disappear through the gates and felt uneasy. Noah was right to warn me. 2 days after he left for the palace, Aunt Helena came to visit. She arrived without warning, sweeping into the Duke's mansion with the entitlement of someone who'd never been denied anything. I was in the gardens practicing calligraphy when a servant came running. Madame Visha, Lady Helena Westbrook is in the receiving hall demanding to see you. Demanding, not requesting. Interesting. I took my time getting ready, changing into formal robes appropriate for receiving highborn guests. When I entered the hall 20 minutes later, Aunt Helena was sitting with perfect posture, drinking tea like she owned the place. Aunt Helena, I said, bowing correctly but not excessively. This is unexpected. Visha. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Look at you, quite the fine lady now. The Duke's mansion suits you. I'm blessed to serve my husband and his family, I said neutrally. Yes, blessed indeed. She set down her teacup with deliberate care. I've come to discuss a matter of some delicacy. Oh, the Westbrook family, all of us, are quite grateful for your sacrifice. Marrying young Lord Noah when he was at death's door, sitting vigil for months. Very admirable. I waited. There was a but coming. But, she continued, now that Lord Noah has recovered, it might be appropriate to reconsider the arrangement. I kept my face perfectly blank. Reconsider how, Aunt? Alara was his intended all along. The engagement between them was made years ago by both families, based on careful fortune-telling and compatibility. Your marriage to Lord Noah was an emergency measure, a kind substitution meant to save his life, not to replace the proper match. Ah, so that was it. Now that Noah had recovered and reclaimed his position as heir, Aunt Helena wanted to swap me out for Alara. Give the glorious prize to her daughter after all. Aunt, I said carefully, I don't think I have the authority to reconsider my own marriage. That would require Lord Noah's agreement, the Duke's approval, and imperial sanction since this involves the Crown Prince's closest ally. It's not a simple matter. Of course it's not simple, Aunt Helena said smoothly. But with the right incentives, things can be arranged. What would you want, Visha? A generous settlement? A good second marriage to someone appropriate for your station? Land? Gold? Name your price. She was trying to buy me, offering to pay me off like I was a merchant's daughter who'd married above her station and could be bribed to step aside. Anger burned in my chest, but I kept my voice level. Aunt, I appreciate your concern for my future, but I made vows before heaven and earth. I'm Lord Noah's wife in the eyes of our ancestors and the Empire. That's not something that can be negotiated away with gold. Aunt Helena's expression hardened. Don't be foolish, girl. You're still just a minor branch nobody. Alara's the main line with connections you could never match. If you refuse to cooperate, I can make your life very difficult. Can you? I met her eyes directly. I'm the daughter-in-law of the Duke of Northwind now. The Duchess herself calls me daughter. Lord Noah trusts me. The Crown Prince knows I saved his friend's life. What exactly do you think you can do to me that wouldn't bring ruin upon yourself? Silence. Aunt Helena's face flushed with rage. She stood abruptly. You ungrateful little wretch. We raised you from poverty. Gave you everything. You gave me scraps and called it kindness, I said quietly. I worked for every single thing I have. And now that I've built something from nothing, you want to take it away and give it to Alara, who was too cowardly to marry Noah when it mattered. How dare you? I dare because I'm not a beggar anymore, I interrupted. I'm the future Duchess of Northwind, and you have no power here. Aunt Helena stared at me, breathing hard. For a moment I thought she might strike me. Then she turned and swept out of the hall without another word. After she left, I sat down shakily. My hands were trembling. Lady Vivian appeared from an adjacent room, where she'd apparently been listening the entire time. Well done, she said. I was about to intervene, but you handled that perfectly. You heard everything? The servants warned me she was here making demands. I wanted to see how you'd respond. She smiled. You've come a long way from the timid girl who volunteered to marry my dying son. I was never timid, I said. Just careful about when to show my teeth. She laughed. Good. Because Helena Westbrook will try again. She won't give up this easily. What should I do? Exactly what you're doing. Stand firm. Noah chose to keep you as his wife when he woke up and learned the truth. He could have petitioned for an annulment claiming the marriage was arranged under duress, but he didn't. That tells everyone where he stands. Why do you think he kept me? I asked curiously. Lady Vivian studied me. Because you're useful. Because you're intelligent. Because in a world where everyone lies to Noah and tells him what they think he wants to hear, you tell him the truth. And probably, she smiled. Because he likes you. Likes me. Don't act so surprised. My son isn't stupid. He knows a good partner when he sees one. I felt warmth spread through my chest. Not love, we hadn't reached that yet. But something better. Respect and partnership. Thank you, Mother, I said. Don't thank me yet. Keep proving you deserve to be here. Noah returned from the palace 3 days later, looking exhausted but satisfied. The Crown Prince wants me to return to military service, he said over dinner. Not immediately. He understands I still need more time to fully recover. But within 6 months he wants me back. That's good, isn't it? I said. It means he still trusts you. It is good. But it also means the situation is deteriorating faster than expected. He set down his chopsticks. The Crown Prince's brother grows bolder. If the Emperor's health fails before matters are settled, chaos will erupt. So the Crown Prince needs his commanders ready. Exactly. And he needs them loyal. Noah looked at me seriously. Visha, if I go to war, you'll be managing this estate in my absence. You'll represent our household at court. You'll be making decisions that affect thousands of people. I know. Are you ready for that? I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, mending dresses in a crumbling courtyard, grateful for scraps, invisible and powerless. I'll be ready, I said. Teach me what I need to know. So he did. For the next 6 months, Noah taught me everything he could about running the estate, managing the household, navigating court politics. We worked from dawn to late evening most days. He introduced me to the key people I'd need to know, estate managers, trade partners, military officers loyal to the Crown Prince. And slowly our partnership deepened into something more. It started small. Him taking my hand during walks. Me leaning against his shoulder when we worked late. Conversations that shifted from strategic to personal. One night, after a long day of reviewing financial records, Noah said quietly, I'm glad it was you. What do you mean? I'm glad you were the one who volunteered to marry me. If Alara had gone through with it, I think I'd be miserable right now. She would have been disappointed that I wasn't the perfect warrior anymore. Disappointed that my arm never fully healed. She would have wanted the fantasy version of me, not the reality. And I'm content with reality? I asked. You prefer it? He smiled. You've never asked me to be anything other than what I am. That's rare. I touched his face gently. I like what you are. Scars and all. He kissed me then. Not with desperate passion, but with genuine affection. With the slow-burning warmth of two people who'd chosen each other. When he pulled back, he said, If we're going to do this properly, we should have a real wedding ceremony. Not the ghost marriage we had before, but a celebration where I'm actually conscious. I laughed. That would be nice. And then, he said carefully, we should probably think about children. Heirs to secure our position. Probably, I agreed. But Noah, there's something I need to tell you first. What? Alara's mother came here while you were at the palace. She tried to convince me to step aside so Alara could marry you instead. His expression darkened. What did you tell her? I told her no. That I was your wife by law and custom and wouldn't be bought off. I paused. Was that all right? All right. He pulled me close. Visha, you're the only person who's fought for this marriage. Fought to stay. Of course that's all right. But I need you to understand why I fought, I said quietly. It's not just because I've grown to care for you, though I have. It's because I refuse to go back to being nothing. I've worked too hard to build this life. I won't let Aunt Helena or Alara or anyone take it from me. Good, he said fiercely. Don't let them. We built this partnership together. It's ours. The real wedding ceremony happened in spring, when the gardens were blooming and the weather was perfect. This time Noah was awake and smiling. This time there was joy instead of sorrow. This time when I bowed to heaven and earth, I was bowing beside a partner I respected and was beginning to love. The crown prince and crown princess attended. Ministers came from across the capital. Even the Empress Dowager sent a gift, a jade bracelet that symbolized her approval. Alara didn't come. Neither did Aunt Helena. The Westbrook main family sent polite regrets and an expensive gift, but no actual representatives. I didn't care. I had a new family now. After the ceremony, during the banquet, Lady Vivian leaned close and whispered, "You've secured your position beautifully, Visha. Now make sure you have children quickly. Nothing protects a wife like sons." "I know, Mother," I said. "We're working on it." She laughed. "Good girl." 3 months later I was pregnant. The household rejoiced. The Duke himself came to congratulate me, rare approval in his eyes. The Duchess pampered me with the finest foods and consulted the finest physicians daily. Noah was simultaneously thrilled and terrified, treating me like I was made of glass. "I'm pregnant, not dying," I told him when he tried to carry me upstairs for the 3rd time. "I know, but nothing. I spent 3 months sitting vigil over you when you were unconscious. You can handle me being pregnant." He laughed and kissed my forehead. Fair point. But our joy was short-lived. Word came from the border. The barbarian tribes were raiding again, emboldened by rumors of instability in the capital. They'd burned villages, stolen livestock, killed imperial soldiers. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The crown prince summoned Noah to the palace. I knew what it meant before Noah came back. "I have to go," he said quietly. "The crown prince needs commanders he can trust, and the military situation is getting worse. If we don't push back hard now, the raids will continue until they're full-scale invasions." "How long?" I asked. "At least 6 months. Possibly a year." I touched my belly, still flat but already precious. "You'll miss the birth." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "Visha, I'm so sorry." "Don't." I took his hands. "Don't apologize for doing your duty. We both knew this was coming. I just hoped we'd have more time." "I'll come back," he promised. "I'll come back to you and our child. I swear it." "You'd better." I tried to smile. "You haven't finished teaching me everything about estate management yet. I still have so much to learn." He laughed through threatening tears. "You've learned more than most would in twice the time." "Perhaps, but I'm still struggling with the silk trade agreements. There's more you need to show me." "I'll work on it when I return," he promised. We spent his last night together quietly, just holding each other. No desperate passion, no grand declarations. Just 2 people who'd built something real and didn't want to let go. The next morning, I helped him dress in his armor. I checked every strap, every buckle, making sure nothing would fail him in battle. "Take care of mother and father for me," he said. "Take care of the estate. Take care of yourself and our child." "Take care of yourself first," I replied. "Come back to us, Noah. That's all I ask." He kissed me one last time, then mounted his horse. I stood in the courtyard and watched him ride away with his commanders and personal guard. Watched until they disappeared through the gates. Watched until the dust settled. Then I turned back to the mansion, one hand on my belly, and got to work. Running the Duke's estate while pregnant and while the heir was at war turned out to be excellent preparation for motherhood. Both required constant vigilance, strategic thinking, and the ability to function on minimal sleep. Lady Vivian helped me navigate the complex responsibilities. Which decisions I could make myself, which required the Duke's approval, which needed approval from the family council. How to balance the estate's books. How to manage servants, tenants, and trade partners. How to host events that maintained our social standing and political alliances. "You're doing well," she told me one evening. "Better than I expected, frankly. Most young wives would have been overwhelmed." "I learned from the best," I said. "You and Noah taught me well. We taught you the basics. You're exceeding them through your own skill." She smiled. My son chose better than he knew. As my pregnancy advanced, so did the political situation in the capital. The emperor's health was declining. The crown prince's position was precarious. His brother was making more aggressive moves, courting generals and ministers. And Noah was at the border, far from court, unable to participate in the maneuvering that would determine who became the next emperor. I attended court events as the Duke's representative since neither Noah nor the Duke himself could be present. The Duke had taken ill with age. I smiled and chatted with other noble ladies. I listened more than I spoke. I gathered intelligence about which families were shifting their allegiances. And I sent careful, coded letters to Noah keeping him informed. When I was 7 months pregnant, Ilara came to visit. It had been nearly 2 years since we'd seen each other. She looked thinner, worn, not the pampered beauty she'd once been. But her eyes held the same mixture of desperation and entitlement I remembered from when Aunt Helena had tried to buy me off. "Sister Visha," she said formally when I received her in the hall. "Ilara." I didn't invite her to sit. "What do you want?" She looked surprised at my directness. "I came to apologize." "For what happened?" "For how Mother treated you." "You came to apologize," I repeated flatly. "After 2 years. While Noah is at war and I'm about to give birth. How convenient." "Visha, please." "Please what?" I stood up awkwardly, my pregnant belly making graceful movement impossible. "Please forgive you for trying to take my husband? Please pretend your mother didn't try to buy me off like a merchant's daughter? Please welcome you with open arms." "I made mistakes," she said, tears forming. "I was scared and stupid and I made the wrong choice. But I've paid for it. No one will marry me now. I'm 22 and unwanted. My own family treats me like a burden. I have nothing." "You had everything," I said coldly. "Everything I fought and scraped for you had from birth. And you threw it away out of cowardice." "I know. Don't you think I know that?" She was crying openly now. "I think about it every day. I dream about Noah, about the life I could have had." "Stop." I held up a hand. "I don't want to hear about your regrets. Noah's my husband. This life is mine. You made your choices. Live with them. Just let me see him once when he returns. Let me apologize to him properly." "No. Visha. Get out," I said quietly. "And don't come back. You're not welcome in this household." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she turned and fled. After she left, I sat down heavily, one hand on my belly where the baby was kicking. "Your father's former fiancé just visited," I told my unborn child. "She wanted forgiveness and second chances. I gave her neither. Am I cruel, little one? Or just practical?" The baby kicked again as if in response. "I'll take that as approval," I said with a tired smile. Noah returned 6 months after leaving for the border, and 3 months after I gave birth to our son. I named him Daniel Chun, after careful consultation with the Duke's family astrologer. A strong name, a fortunate name, a name that would serve him well whether he became a duke or a general. The Duchess had been with me during the birth, holding my hand through the pain. "He has his father's spirit," she'd said when Daniel first cried. "Strong and determined." Now, seeing Noah walk into the nursery and lay eyes on his son for the first time, I watched his face transform. "A son," he breathed. "Your son," I confirmed. "Come meet him." Noah approached slowly, still wearing travel dust, looking uncertain. I placed Daniel in his arms carefully. "He's perfect," Noah whispered. "Visha, he's perfect." "He has your eyes," I noted. "And my stubborn temperament, the nurses say. He screams when he's hungry and won't settle until he gets what he wants." Noah laughed. "Definitely your son then." He looked at me with such open love that it took my breath away. "I missed you," he said. "Every day at the border I missed you. Wondered if you were all right. If the baby was healthy. If you'd forgiven me for leaving." "Nothing to forgive," I said. "You did your duty. So did I. And now we're together again." "Together," he repeated like the word was sacred. The campaign had been successful. The barbarian tribes were pushed back. Their leaders killed or captured, the border secured. Noah came back with glory, new honors, and the crown prince's deepest gratitude. But he also came back changed. Harder. More careful. With eyes that had seen too much death. "The war isn't over," he told me privately. "The border is secure, but the capital, Visha, I think the emperor is dying. When that happens, the real war will begin. Between the crown prince and his brother? Yes. And every family, every general, every minister will have to choose a side. There won't be any neutral ground. Then we choose the crown prince, I said firmly. We've already committed too much to that alliance to back out now. Even if it means we might lose everything? If his brother wins, we could be executed as traitors. I looked at our son sleeping peacefully in his cradle. Then we'd better make sure the crown prince wins. Noah smiled grimly. My practical wife. Always seeing clearly. Someone has to. I took his hand. Tell me what you need me to do. So we planned. For months we planned, preparing for the succession crisis we knew was coming. Securing allies. Stockpiling resources. Making contingency plans for different scenarios. And we were right to prepare. When the emperor died 8 months later, the capital exploded into chaos. The crown prince claimed the throne based on tradition and the late emperor's spoken decree. His brother claimed it based on the Empress Dowager's support and control of the southern armies. Civil war erupted within days. Noah left immediately to command the crown prince's forces in the north. I remained in the capital, managing the estate, coordinating supply lines, gathering intelligence through networks of servants and merchants. It was terrifying. Brutal. The city filled with soldiers from both sides. Families were torn apart based on their loyalties. Ministers were executed in the streets. Even minor nobles weren't safe. Simply being suspected of supporting the wrong prince could get you killed. I kept Daniel hidden in the safest part of the mansion with Lady Vivian. Surrounded by guards we trusted absolutely. I attended court when required, smiled and maintained neutrality in public, while secretly coordinating with the crown prince's faction. The war lasted 9 months. 9 months of bloody battles, sieges, betrayals. 9 months of wondering each day if Noah was still alive. 9 months of terror that the wrong side might win and we'd all be executed. But in the end, the crown prince's forces prevailed. His brother was killed in the final battle. The Empress Dowager was exiled to a remote temple. The surviving supporters of the losing side were either executed or stripped of their positions. And the crown prince ascended the throne as emperor regent. Noah came back to the capital a war hero. The new emperor promoted him to general of the northern armies and granted our family additional lands and honors. We had survived. More than survived, we had risen. 6 years after that desperate wedding ceremony where I married an unconscious man, I stood in the Duke's mansion, now my mansion, since the old Duke had passed away and Noah inherited the title, and looked at everything I'd built. Daniel was 5 years old, bright and energetic, already learning to read and write. I was pregnant again with our second child. Noah had become one of the most powerful military commanders in the empire. Our estates were prosperous. Our family was secure. The Westbrook Main family had fallen on hard times. Without the protection of Noah's connection, which they'd forfeited when Elara refused to marry him, they'd bet on the wrong prince during the Civil War. Most of their lands were confiscated. Their influence evaporated. Aunt Helena had died during the war, some said from shame, others from a convenient illness that struck when her faction was losing. Elara had been married off to a minor merchant, far below her former station. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, just emptiness. They'd been so powerful once, so untouchable. And now they were nothing. You're thinking too hard, Noah said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my pregnant belly. Just reflecting, I said, on how far we've come. We've come far, he agreed. But I think you've come furthest. From a side branch nobody to the Duchess of Northwind, wife of a duke, mother of the next generation. You've exceeded every limitation anyone tried to put on you. We did it together, I corrected. No. He turned me to face him. I helped. But you're the one who fought for this. You're the one who volunteered to marry a dying man when everyone else ran. You're the one who sat vigil for 3 months. You're the one who managed an entire estate while pregnant and alone. This success, it's yours as much as mine. I leaned against him, feeling the baby kick. I suppose I did prove everyone wrong. You proved yourself right, he said. That's better. That evening, as I put Daniel to bed, he asked, Mama, why do the other children call me the Phoenix Boy? Because, I said, smoothing his hair, Your father was like a phoenix. Everyone thought he would die, but he came back to life. And you're his son, strong and resilient like him. Will I be a duke someday? Yes. And a good one, I hope. One who remembers that power is a responsibility, not just a privilege. Like you and Papa? Exactly like me and Papa. After Daniel fell asleep, I went to the study where I kept my private journals. Page after page of records, every decision I'd made, every alliance I'd forged, every challenge I'd overcome. I picked up my brush and wrote. Today Daniel asked why they call him the Phoenix Boy. I told him about his father's resurrection. But I could have told him a different story. About a girl who rose from nothing to become everything. About learning that the greatest power isn't in your birth or your bloodline, but in your willingness to take risks when everyone else runs away. I was born into poverty and neglect. I survived on scraps and cleverness. I married a dying man and helped him live. I built an empire from desperation and determination. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because this rugged, uneven road, I walked it with all my wits from age 16 until now, and at last it has leveled out. So what is there to fear from here on? Visha-chan, Duchess of Northwind. Go forward without fear. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Thanks for watching.